Stockham. I'm the service manager in the community partnerships team at Warwick County Council. Welcome to our Meet the Funder webinar that we are co-hosting with our colleagues from CAVA. I will do a quick round of introductions of the team, and then what we'll do is we've got a few guests with us as well, telling us about their experience of applying for council grants, and obviously what they did with the money, and talking a bit about their projects. So I'll also introduce them. And then we'll just go through some of the details of the fund itself. Also, things like what is the eligibility criteria, and we'll then sort of open the floor for our guests to talk a bit about their experience. So let me just do a round of introductions. If I can just go to Nikki, please.
Hi, my name is Nikki Bailey, and I am the Grants and Community Directory Officer, and I also cover the North Warwickshire area with my colleague Jennifer McCabe.
Thanks, Nikki. Mike.
Hi everyone, I'm Mike Slemensek, Communities and Partnerships Service of Warwickshire County Council, and I'm the Service Manager for Nuneaton and Bedworth.
Thank you, Mike. Jen.
Hi everyone, apologies, my camera doesn't seem to be working today. I am Jen McCabe, I'm the Service Manager for Rugby and North Warwickshire.
Thanks, Jen. And if we can go to Sarah, please.
Thanks, Dominica. Hi everyone. So I'm Sarah Newell, and I'm the Delivery and Development Manager for Warwickshire CAVA, which is Warwickshire Community and Voluntary Action, for those that don't know. I cover the north of the area, so I cover Nuneaton, Bedworth and North Warwickshire.
Thank you, Sarah. And just introducing our guests in no particular order. If I can go to Rachel Doughty, please.
Oh, hello, I'm Rachel. I'm Director of Artspan, Community Interest Company. And sorry, I'm getting feedback. Sorry.
Sorry.
That's okay. And I've received a council grant, so I'm just going to be here to tell you about how I found that process and what I did with the money.
Thanks, Rachel. Sorry, can I just ask everyone to mute themselves unless they're speaking, please? Thank you. Claire, please.
Hi there, everyone. I'm Claire Thomas from Spark Youth Music, and I'm a guest speaker, same as Rachel, to talk about how we've been successful with the council funding and to give you some top tips, apparently.
Thanks, Claire. Thank you, Rachel. Good to have you. Jo.
Hello, I'm Joanne. I work for the Mighton Hospices, and much like Claire and Rachel, I'm here to tell you about our experience and also apparently top tips, which I'm now going to be thinking of desperately, Claire.
Thank you, Jo. Naomi.
Good evening. I'm Naomi, and I am Director of Stratford Family Club based in Stratford-upon-Avon. And we had the council's grants last year, yeah, we've been running for a year now, so I'm here to talk about our I can't remember the word, it's late, it's been a long day. Talk about what we've used the grants for and how they've helped the families in Stratford.
Thank you so much, Naomi. It's great to have you with us. Thanks, everyone. All right, let me just share my screen and go straight into the slides. Okay, can you all see that now? Yeah, perfect, thank you. Sarah, if I can come to you for a bit of an introduction about CAVA, please.
Yeah, of course. So just for a bit of context for those that don't know the work that Carver does. So we work really closely with Warwickshire County Council, but we are the local infrastructure organisation, and we support the voluntary community and social enterprise sector, providing support for groups around brokerage and volunteering, training, any kind of governance. Funding is one of the main ones that we do, so around identifying suitable funding and supporting with funding applications, and kind of setting up sort of constitutions and things as well. So we work really closely with the voluntary community to support them to do the fantastic work that they do within Warwickshire and Solihull as well.
Thank you, Sarah.
Yeah, and there's just a bit of context around some of the work that we did in the last kind of financial year. So as you can see, work around the kind of volunteer recruitment, the amount of funding that we've kind of supported organisations to apply for, which is just fantastic, and just some of the fantastic work that the organisations and groups have done in Warwickshire. And yeah, just again, a bit more context around where we work. So we have a volunteer coordinator and a funding and group development officer in each of 5 different areas across Warwickshire. So you probably hopefully be aware of your local funding and group development officer. If not, please do get in touch and I can kind of identify who that would be for you. And we also work in Solihull, but that's a bit different anyway. But yeah, so we've got a funding group development officer in each area, and they are more than happy to support you with funding applications, whether it be for this particular fund or looking at other funding as well. So just around the work we do.
Thank you, Sarah. It's good to have you here, and I'm sure that there's going to be some questions about support available from Carver later on. About becoming a Carver member.
Oh yes, yes. Just a bit of a plug while I've got the opportunity. Just around becoming a Carver member if you're not already. We work with an incredibly large amount of organisations and groups. But obviously we encourage membership. We encourage people to sign up to become a member. It is completely free. And as you can see there are a number of benefits, including sort of back office support services, kind of discounted rates on different things, including HR, IT, payroll, and kind of access to our resource library as well. So just a bit of a plug for Carver membership if you're not already a member.
Thanks, Sarah. Yes, so moving on to the fund itself, the grant effectively provides each of the 57 county councillors with a pot of £8,000 annually to support small-scale projects within their division, and those are to support the following outcomes which are in the council plan. So it's about wanting to have a thriving economy and places that have right jobs, skills, education and infrastructure, wanting to be a county where all people can live their best lives, where communities and individuals are supported to live safely, healthily, happily and independently, and also we want to be a county with a sustainable future, which means adapting to and mitigating climate change and meeting net zero commitments. The grant criteria are to build community capacity and improve the health and well-being of people living in Warwickshire by improving community assets and their sustainability, improving access to services, improving financial capability, reducing loneliness and social isolation, improving physical and/or mental health and well-being, promoting equalities and inclusivity, and improving the local environment and sustainability. So your project doesn't need to meet all of these priorities, but you need to meet one or more of these priorities in order to get the funding. In terms of the application process, all applications are submitted on our website, which we can link up, and obviously we will send you a copy of these slides so you can refer back to them. But effectively, it is the same application form. What you need to do is you just select how much money you're applying for, whether you're applying for up to £350 or 350 or more. The only difference is that the application form itself is a lot smaller, a lot shorter if you're only applying for a small amount. So effectively, there's just one sort of grant criterion that you need to meet. About the question is about how your project meets the grant priorities that I've mentioned before. And if you're applying for over £350, there's a few more questions that you need to complete around sort of how the project has been shaped, how by the local community, how have you identified the need from within your local area, and things like how will this project support people, and also volunteering. So there's an element of volunteering as well. With the small grants, the difference is that we are able to process those shorter time in a shorter time. So you should be hearing back from us within sort of 4 weeks of the deadline date, and we will be seeking your end of project reports around 6 months from receipt of funding. Opposed to the larger grants or the high value grants, where you will get the end of project report within 12 months. So you just have a little bit more time to complete your project. And of course, we will be contacting you between the deadline date about the outcome of your application. Yeah, so as I mentioned, in terms of the awards up to £350, your project needs to be delivered within 6 months. The application clearly needs to state how the funding will be spent and include a budget breakdown, and also evidence how it meets one or more of the priority categories of the fund. In terms of the awards over £350, as I mentioned, there's a criteria there and a scoring matrix. So what you need to do is you need to score above 7 points in order to get the funding. So any application scoring 6 or less are unlikely to be awarded. And then we also ask a question around partnership working with other organizations, which can strengthen your application, and it just gives a good evidence of partnership working. But this question is not scored on the basis that 300, say someone actually is applying for an item like a lawnmower or something like that, or an industrial microwave, which is a one-off cost, which usually doesn't exceed much over £350. So we're just trying to be as proportionate as possible here. So some things to bear in mind: in order to score highly, make sure that you are answering the question. You don't need to write a lot. There is a word limit on how much you can put in. However, it's not about the volume. It's about making sure that your question is answered and that you have some evidence in there as well. Make sure that your answers are also relevant to your local community. So sometimes it's okay to include national statistics if local information is not available, but really we just want to know about why there is a need in the local area for your service. And try to submit any evidence of costs where appropriate, especially for when there are things like refurbishment of village halls and things like that, which obviously we don't fully fund, but if there are some elements, it's useful to know the total project costs as well. You can also submit additional information, for example, like I said, the quotes or any further evidence, because our application form does not allow you to attach any documents, but you're welcome to submit any additional information. And we may request to see your governance, to see your governing document or a constitution. Especially if you are a new group, or if we haven't come across you before, we on our website you can see all the scoring criteria and the guidance notes. So the guidance notes actually will talk you through everything that you need to know in terms of the eligibility criteria, whether you're eligible, what types of projects we can or can't fund, and it's got everything in there that you need in order to make your application. One thing to note is that you can't save the progress of your application. So what you'll need to do is you need to pre-prepare your answers and come back to it. The reason for that is that the application form sits on an MS form, which unfortunately we can't change at this point in time. So the best way to go about this is to pre-prepare your answer using a list of questions that are available on the website. So either typing it out in Word document or whatever sort of typing software that you have available, and then just copying and pasting them when you're ready. And then if you don't have a governing document, this is something that Carver will be able to support you with, and Sarah will be able to tell you a bit more about that.
Yeah, absolutely. So this might not be relevant to most of you that are on here, but if you are kind of a smaller group that's running without a governing document or a constitution, there are kind of that's one of the roles that Carver play in terms of supporting groups to set up. So we can, help to set up a constitution for you, but within this time frame, it might be that we support you to kind of link in with another local project that kind of fits along the kind of work that you're doing, to host your application for that funding. And again, that's kind of a conversation that we can have and we can support with, to enable you to apply for this funding. So yeah, absolutely.
Thanks, Sarah. And yes, as I mentioned, in terms of the end of project evaluation, because this is obviously public money where the funding comes from, we need to evidence how this has been spent. So you will be asked to provide information on how you've spent the money, and we will also be asking for some receipts and invoices. So if you are making purchases with the grants money, it's important that you keep that in order to be able to report to us afterwards how that's been spent. If you've got any money that you haven't been able to spend, we'd like to know how you're planning on spending that. So there's no, depending on a sort of a case by case scenario, if it's just that you've had a slight delay with your project and you are aiming to spend the funding as suggested in your application form, then we usually are able to give you an extension, but we will ask you about how you plan on spending the money in the future. One thing that we like to see is how many volunteer hours were dedicated to the project, and how many new volunteers have you recruited as part of that. That gives us a really good understanding of the value of the council grants. And also we like to hear any success stories. So how has the community benefited from your project? How many people? And also any information about the future of the project. So is it that you were able to get started something really valuable in your community, and have you been able to sustain it, and are you able to sustain it for some period of time? Then that's what we want to see. It's really good to see the outcome of the council grant, and seeing that it has made a difference in the local community. Okay, so without further ado, I will just sort of hand over, but I will help them out as well, because they have, I don't want to put them on the spot. But if I can ask our guest speakers just to tell us a little bit about their projects and what they received their funding for. Is it okay for me to start with Rachel?
Yeah, that's fine. I teach sewing and dressmaking as a paid course, so people pay me to do that, but I find it quite expensive and quite prohibitive to some people. So what I wanted to do was to set up free sewing classes, so that those that were on low incomes or unwaged could learn how to sew. So I ran a pilot scheme of 8 weeks and taught 8 people how to sew. And so I spent some, I don't know, I'm going a bit far ahead now, but yeah, so that was my project, was to do a pilot scheme to see if there was a need for free sewing classes. Is that, I could carry on, but is that all you want for now?
Thanks, Rachel. Yeah, that's fine. We'll come back. We'll circle back around to you. That's really useful. And in terms of those people that you sort of taught, what was some of the feedback that you got from them?
Very positive. It was really good feedback, and actually off the back of the feedback, I got another grant. And I think the feedback was, so I'm now continuing, I'm now carrying on. So the pilot was January to, I think, so January, it was, yeah, it's about 6 to 8 weeks in January, February, and a bit in March. And I'm now just about to finish the next lot. So I've done a beginner's course, but also an intermediate course. So quite a few people on the beginner's course have come on to the intermediate course. And I've got a new beginner's course, so just about to finish again next week, and then I'll be applying. I'm currently applying for more funding, funding for a year this time, to fund the whole project for another year.
Yeah, no, that sounds really positive. Sounds like obviously it has really taken off. So really good to have you here with us today, and good to hear about the success. Naomi, if I can come to you, please.
So I was volunteering at a toddler group for about 6 years, and realised the need for kind of family nurturing, affordable, accessible family groups in Stratford. And so that's kind of where the idea started, and we started officially in September last year, and we got the councillors grants. And yeah, they have been used for so many amazing things, and to support so many families in the area. We went from running 2 sessions a week to 6 sessions a week, which I do mostly by myself, but I have a huge team of volunteers from the community who come in and support each week, and it's fantastic for them. We have people from all over, kind of older people and people whose children have just gone off to school, so it's as much for the volunteers as it is for the families that we work with. We over the year have started to kind of branch out and find other groups in Stratford supporting mental health, and so we've been able to pinpoint parents to other amazing things and support that's happening in Stratford. So kind of that's where we're starting. It's non-for-profit, so we're all volunteers. We all work really, really hard, and yeah, I mean, it shows how much need it is, because we are packed for every single group that we run, and we run all over different groups every day all over Stratford, so that people can, if they wake up and they've had a horrendous night with their children, they've got somewhere to go, to have a hot cup of tea, to let their children have a safe, nurturing learning environment, and they can just chat with parents about the ups and downs of parenthood. So that's what we do. The councillor grants have been amazing to help us to be able to hire places so that we can be in the community, to be able to set ourselves up really with all of the legal things that need to happen to run a safe group. And toys, we started from scratch, so we've been able to get some amazing equipment, sensory toys. We were really fortunate to be given a good amount of grant money.
Sorry. You don't care.
So yeah, so we've been able to kind of really set ourselves off and the need is there, so we will be carrying on. And in fact, I have been sat with one of my directors today filling in the next application in the hope that we will be able to carry on with the councillors' grants for another year.
Thanks, Naomi. That's really, really good to hear that the grant has been able to support so many families. That's fantastic. And I'll just go over to Claire, please. Sorry, Claire, you're on mute.
God, who didn't want to hear my dulcet tones there?
That's better.
I went through the whole thing. I'll have to start again. So yes, thanks for having me. I've wrote some notes because when I was asked to do this by Dominica, I feel so passionately about these councillor funds and how amazing they are that I didn't want to miss anything out. So apologies if I do waffle on a bit, but they have literally been a lifeline for Spark Music. We couldn't operate without them. And I say that because funding applications for the councillor funds, they are being decided by the team at the council and also the councillors, and they know who is in that community and the needs of that community. I guess that's the whole point. And from our perspective, being in Warwickshire, there are places of social deprivation and poor mental health and all that kind of thing. And I'll go on to what Spark does in a minute. But we've applied to the National Lottery, postcode funding, all that kind of thing. And I always get the feeling that no matter what boxes we tick, we are not going to get that funding simply because they see sort of Stratford-upon-Avon, Kenilworth, Leamington, Warwick, all those areas as quite affluent. And so it's really amazing that we've got this councillor funding grant because the councillors know that that's not always the case and they're best placed to know what their residents need. So should tell you what we do really. So Spark Music, we believe that every child should have access to music, and music tuition is extortionately expensive from commercial companies, and so lots of children will not get the opportunity. Now, we're not aiming for every kid to be Bruce Springsteen or Paul McCartney, but we know that music is a brilliant vehicle to help kids who've got anxiety. There may be an outsider in school, they may have issues, there may be a young carer, they may be vulnerable in some way. And it is giving them life skills as confidence. So music is a massive vehicle for those kind of things. So what we did, we set up Spark Music about 5 years ago. And the idea was a bit of a crazy idea. We thought, right, let's get kids, put them in a band. We don't care if they've never picked up an instrument before. We didn't know if it was going to work, and it did. So that was good. So we put them in a band, and within a few weeks, they can be playing on stage. Okay, so that's what we do. All the instruments provided, and all the venue and all that kind of thing is all free. And we have a music tutor who helps them do this. Not only do they learn to play covers and learn to play an instrument, they also do lots of other activities which lead to, opportunities for them to see, like, things outside their school environment. So they go into a recording studio, they write an original song. They do logo design, they design their own T-shirts, they perform in a massive gig, working with sound, lighting engineers. Dominica knows all about this because she's the biggest groupie. She goes to these gigs. So they do all that kind of thing. They do a photo shoot, they do a music video. So it's not only about the music, they get exposed to all these different activities too, which they probably wouldn't ever have the opportunity to do. So that's what we do. Let me have a look. What else I've written here? So the people we work with are vulnerable children in the main. So that includes children from low-income families. We also do a lot with the HAF programme as well, which ties into that. But low-income families, children with anxiety, they may have suffered a bereavement, they may have been bullied at school, there may be SEND children, pan disability, LGBT. We've worked with refugees and asylum seekers, put them into bands, and people like young carers who've got siblings at home, where the home life is not easy, and they come to us and it's a bit of an outlet. So this funding has been a lifeline. It's funded so many things. There's so much that we can fund with it in terms of tutors, equipment initially. Eventually, we didn't have to do that because we've got the equipment. It's an asset. Tutoring, recording sessions. We have to pay for the gig. Everything is free for the children. So any funding we get is basically used for those children in all those activities. So yeah, the councillor grants are fantastic. So what else? Right. So projects we've done include all those vulnerable groups of kids. We also have worked with a group of adults with some councillor funding, and those adults all had suffered a significant bereavement, whether it be a husband, a wife, a mother, father, and it had affected them in some way. So, you know, using that sort of template that we have with the kids, we did that with some adults. So that councillor funding has also funded that. We run at various locations. And so the funding, as I say, can be used in a variety of ways, to like for the recording sessions, the final gig, the t-shirts, that kind of thing. But also we sometimes run at specific locations. So we've done a project with, say, Evergreen School Children, which obviously is going to run there. That cuts down on the venue costs because we've got the venue already there. Got Welcome Hill Special School, Southern College, and all those have been funded partially or fully by
the shape of the ball where it bounced.
Sorry.
Anyway, so good. So that's it, really. So yeah, so it's been an amazing lifeline to us, and we are incredibly grateful. We simply just wouldn't be able to operate without the councillor funding, and it's as simple as that. So.
Thank you, Claire. That's really impressive, and thanks for all your preparation for tonight. It's
There's a word now. I can sense who was the person who hadn't prepared the top tips, because I did my homework.
You have done your homework for tonight. Yes,
I always do my homework.
Yeah. And if I can just come over to Joanne, and then we'll do a bit of a Q&A and a bit of a discussion, so people can just ask questions about sort of your experience, anything that you would like to add.
Okie dokie. First of all, I think the three speakers have spoken wonderfully about what they do, and it's really exciting. And I'm particularly interested in the music one because I have a son with special needs, and it would just be awesome. So yeah, I think that's amazing. So I work for the Mighton Hospices. I'm part of the fundraising department, and I'm sure that sounds like a real luxury to some of the people on the call to actually have a fundraising department. What we do in Mighton, you may well be aware of us, we've been around for I think 43 years now, and we care for and support people over the age of 18 who have a life-limiting illness that is uncurable, and we support them in every way we can do, physically, mentally, spiritually, and so forth. And we also support their families right through to the end of the individual's life. So it's a very holistic care. We have a whole range of services. Most people will think of a hospice and think of an inpatient unit. We have two of those, one in Warwick, one in Coventry. But we also have a support hub in Rugby, and we have a wellbeing service, and the wellbeing service reaches out to people pretty much as soon as they have a diagnosis. And we've had different projects working with local GPs to try and make sure that those referrals happen very quickly, people get information quickly. So it's not, it sounds strange for a hospice person to say this, but it's not all about end of life. It's about giving people the very best life that they can have before their life ends. So so that's very much what we're about. And then there's a whole range of services. We have a home visiting team, and we also have in-house, we have counselling, physiotherapy, occupational therapy, complementary therapy, lymphedema. So there's a whole range of different services. And why would we be looking at fundraising and at grants? Well, all our services are free. And you may well be aware of the hospice funding crisis nationally. We are not the NHS, we are a charity. The NHS do cover 17% of our costs, but that still leaves us this year £12.7 million to raise. And we have to raise that money from lots of different fundraising. Any of you that are in the local area will see that we do loads of events. We have which is what I'm part of, a team that do grant applications. So we have a massive challenge every year in terms of actually fundraising, and that's why we look at all these types of grants. And local grants are really key for us because we very much consider ourselves a local community asset. So being part of Warwickshire, you know, it's we have the only inpatient beds within Warwickshire. So, you know, if Warwickshire County Council know that, they can, you know, that they can support us in this process. When we came to look at this last year, we cover the whole of Warwickshire, Coventry too, but for the purposes of this call, we cover the whole of Warwickshire. So when I first started to look at it, I wasn't sure which councillor to apply to, because I thought, oh, it could be any of them. So what I did instead actually was I looked at what services that I thought met the criteria the best, and the criteria around mental health, physical health, being happy, being healthy, being independent really seemed to fit well with our wellbeing service, which is the service that reaches out to when people have had their first diagnosis. So I actually went through all of our data for a year on all the wellbeing patients that we had. I went through every single postcode and I identified the counsellors to approach, which took quite a while, but that was a really useful exercise to do. And yes, and I suppose it maybe made a lot of sense in the end, but in fact, the one where our site is in Warwick, that had the most number of people going to our wellbeing service within Warwick. So one of the grants, we received 2 grants. One of the grants we received was for our wellbeing service in Warwick Mighton Hospice for a number of sessions. And in these sessions, we have patients, we have carers, people have a clinical assessment, which may result in them being signposted to other services, but we also run, say, wellbeing sessions for patients where for some of them it's the first time they've come and actually spoken to other people who are in the same boat as they are, and it's a massive relief, and there they can learn all about how to manage their symptoms better as well. So it's a really, again, like a holistic wellbeing session for those individuals, and that team also run carers groups, because very often as loved ones reach the end of their lives, people's role changes into a carer and they're not prepared for that. It's not something they were ever planning to do. And so that the team help them through that process and help do a bit of self-assessment, because you can't care for people if you don't care for yourself too. So it's very much that approach with the carers. So we received a grant in relation to our wellbeing services at the Warwick hospice site. And we also received a grant for our support hub in Rugby, but that was for running a particular program, and this particular program is called No Barriers Here, which was developed by another hospice, in fact, but it's a program where we have to have people specially trained, and then they come back and they run a creative, arty workshop with individuals to talk about what are their wishes for care and for their death. And it might be that people have struggled to verbalize these in the past. Sometimes that's a cultural issue, and sometimes it's because it's just something that they haven't really accepted and wanted to verbalize. And so in this workshop, people can use different tools to actually show and express how they feel about things without having to talk about it a lot and without having to write it. And so, yeah, so that's the No Barriers Here workshop, which we also got funding for. So, yeah, one of the attendees at the No Barriers Here workshop said, it really affected me and I cried all the way home. And that wasn't because I was crying because I was sad. I was crying because at last I thought, I'm now talking about this. So yeah, so really very poignant and meaningful. So yeah, so that's what we got our money for.
Thank you, Jo. It's really nice to hear, and it's really rewarding also to hear from all of you here today about the amazing work that you do and the positive impact it's having on the communities. So thanks so much. And I'll just sort of open up the floor for any questions, and then we'll sort of circle around. Nikki. Sorry, Nikki, you're on mute.
Yeah, mine's not a question, but just to say, anyone who doesn't particularly want to vocalize their question, we do have a chat. So you can pop your question in the chat and we can raise that.
Thank you, Nikki. I'll go over to David.
Dominica, thank you, and thank you to you and colleagues for organising this this evening. It's been very useful, and also thank you to the guests who have spoken with great passion, and it's been very interesting to hear their stories. Mine's a very quick question, and I have a feeling I know the answer, but it's slightly building on what Joanne was saying. Can I just check, is the application to the councillor where the activity takes place rather than where the organisation is based?
Yes, very much so, David. Very good question. A lot of the times, what the councillors want to see and what we want to see is that your projects are supporting people in their divisions. So you can apply to more than one councillor as long as there is some evidence that you are supporting people in more than one division. So if you are, for example, a community centre that serves more than one division, you're more than welcome to apply to more than one councillor. But yes, what we want to see is that it's the people who benefit from it opposed to where the service is delivered.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. Judith. I think Judith,
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, yeah, we can hear you now.
Okay, my question is perhaps a bit boring, but we find ourselves I'm coming from Henley Community Library, and we wish to apply for funding to support the upgrading of our public access computers, which people depend on for various things, such as job searches and communicating, and humdrum things like making travel arrangements, communicating with their banks and so forth. But we are trapped in a round 2 situation. We received a small grant, the £350 grant, to run a series of children's programs, which we are in the process of doing. But the conditions in the grant statement appear to say that we cannot now apply in round 1. And we need to apply in round 1 and get off this treadmill of being stuck perpetually in November. Do you have any suggestions?
It's something that we are definitely looking into, actually. Nikki and I, we both had a conversation around this, and it's something that we are going to be addressing. At this point in time, unfortunately, it is the case of waiting to complete your end of project report before you apply again. But it is something that is on our radar, and we do continuously look for any sort of areas where people might be stuck in a like you say, a bit of a circle of not being able to apply to round 1. And obviously that may limit the amount that you can apply for. That being said, obviously this is a competitive fund, so there are some councils that like to hold some funding back in case they receive any applications in round 2, and it's sort of down to their discretion, and they tend to already know, and we will advise them about what, because obviously we've had a bunch of new councillors, but we will let them know that they have the option of obviously holding some funding back for round 2 if they wish to do so, depending on the number of applications they have received. So we wouldn't tell them to do that if they are significantly oversubscribed in round 1, but hopefully we can address some of these issues, Judith, in the near future.
Okay, I see. But the submitting our final report is at the council's initiative. We don't get to submit our final report until it is asked for. Is that right?
Again, yes, this is again something that we are actually looking into, because there is, in reality, there is no reason why that report can't be sent to you with the awarding email. So hopefully, if you once you have completed the project, especially this applies to projects like yours, Judith, when you need to purchase items. So that way, once you've purchased your items, technically your project is completed. So there shouldn't be a wait of, say, 8 or 9 months for you to apply again. But obviously, what we are trying to do is, in certain cases, to avoid over-reliance on the fund. But it is something we are keen on addressing, because obviously the timelines don't necessarily work for the organisations as much as they may work for us. So we are going to be looking at some way of being able to address that, so that people can submit their report rather than having to wait for, like I said, 8 or 9 months before they submit it. And also, I'm sure that we'll probably get better quality reports back as well, because people won't have to wait for months to respond back to those.
Okay, thank you. I'm sorry, it's not a very inspirational question, but it is a
No, that's
necessary
okay,
one.
Judith. Yeah, it is important that we take those things into consideration, and obviously look into those and see if we can fix them. So no, it's useful to know. Kate.
Thank you, Dominica. My question really is applying to Welcome Here, Leamington and Warwick, as opposed to New Hope. I've got my two hats on tonight. I understand the concept that you can apply to more than one councillor. I've noticed on obviously the criterion, I think you said that at the beginning anyway, about if it sort of tots up the amount you're applying for across different councillors is more than the 350. There are questions you need to answer on the large grants.
Yes.
Is that even if each councillor you are asking them for different items, if you like, or is it if it's a collective? Does that make?
Yeah, I think because it would technically be classed as part of the same project. I would say so, but it might be the case of just having a conversation offline, depending on, because there might be some nuances, and I think it might be best just.
And a couple of other things I wanted to ask. Sorry.
No.
The other thing is, I mean, I appreciate that each councillor's got £8,000 and they want to spread that out to as many groups as they can. But I'm also mindful that sometimes when you get to the second round, you look at the councillors and some of them often have quite hefty amounts left to spend. Not all of them. But one of the things we had a trustees meeting last night, and we were talking about, putting in for this. Is it worth putting in a more substantial? I mean, let's say for argument's sake, we put in a bid for, let's say, between £2,000 and £3,000 for argument's sake. Would it be possible that you would we might be awarded less than we applied for, because they say, well, we're happy to support you for some of it, but we're not going to pay you the full amount? Does that ever happen? Or is it better just to go for a smaller amount anyway, to sort of?
Yes, so the councils can say, can award a smaller sum depending on obviously the amount of applications. So you're welcome to do a bit of a larger sum. I think it's the case of making sure that we balance the amount that we give you compared to the total value of your project, because we wouldn't want to put you in a position where we give you a small percentage of what you're trying to deliver and then you're kind of stuck for delivering it. So as long as we can give you a substantial amount, or depending on your circumstances, say if you have applied to another fund and you're about to hear you're waiting to hear back from them, then it's something that we can have a conversation around as to what would be the best way forward. So yes, the councils can sometimes, this is why it's so important to provide a budget breakdown, because especially if you're purchasing certain items, they can say, well, actually I can't afford all of this, but I can afford sort of these items. So they will look at it that way. Yes.
Okay, and then one final hold on, make sure I've got all my final question, and I don't know whether you're able to even, you know, you may want to talk to me about this separately, Dominica, or offline. Is there, do you think that applying, because I understand the criteria around sustainability and as many people in the community are, I suppose, in being impacted by what's being offered, but one of the areas would be looking at welcome packs for asylum seekers, and I appreciate that those are not people who are maybe going to be permanently based in the community. Is that an area that you think a councillor's grant would consider, or do you think we need to look at other sources of funding for that?
I think specifically for the welcome packs, that might be a little bit tricky due to the national guidance about the asylum seekers' rights to public funds, the recourse to public funds. So we might need to take that conversation offline, I think, and see about the possibility of, say, migrant communities grant fund or another funding stream that would be able to put some money towards that specific thing.
For that.
Yeah.
Okay. But for refugees that are settled, that would be different, wouldn't it?
Yes, it will be. Yes.
Yeah. Lovely. That's really helpful. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you, Kate. Mary. I think you should be able to see. Yeah, we can hear you now. Hi, Mary.
Yes, lovely, thank you. I don't want to labour the point because we've been going over it, but I just want to make sure I've got this right in my own head. So we're in Nuneaton and Men and Women in Sheds. We've got 2 properties up at Queen's Road and down at Phoenix Centre. So we are looking to apply for the grants over multiple councillors because our shedders come from different areas as well. So is it best to spread it in small amounts over a few councillors? And then if we don't get the full amount that we want, it's £1,000 we would like. What would we do if we don't get the full amount over a few councillors, if you get my drift?
So there are some areas where councillors sort of put their money together, especially in urban areas, or there are certain councillors that will meet together and we present them the obviously they like to sort of look at the wider picture. So it might be the case of your bid going to all of them sort of at the same time, or what we tend to do anyway, even if it's in an area where the councils don't meet together to make joint decisions, we will tell them who else you've applied to, and we will tell we although we don't go into detail of our conversations with the councillors, we will give them a bit of an understanding as to how much has been funded up until that point when we meet in with the next councillor. So hopefully that will give you a bit of reassurance about how the decisions are being made, so that we make sure that we are transparent with what other councils have funded.
Fabulous, that's great, thank you so much.
Thanks, Mary.
Thank you.
Just want to say thank you to Rachel for coming along. I have seen your message, Rachel, to say that you need to leave now, but thanks for coming along, and it was really good to have you. And just moving on to Linda, please.
Hi there. It was very interesting. It's been very interesting, and also interesting to hear of the projects, those people who have come on. They seem to have done an awful lot, but none of them, I don't think, revealed if they were they'd applied and received the £350, or whether they'd gone for big amounts. It would be just interesting to know. They might not want to do it, but is anybody brave enough to tell us the exact amount that they had for their project from this source?
Thank you, Linda. Good question. I think, Claire, did you want to come in and answer that?
Yeah, I'm happy to do that. I can't tell you the exact amounts, Linda, because we've applied for lots of different councillor grants over the last 4 or 5 years. So I honestly can't remember. But what I would say is, I don't know if is this true, Dominica, that the 350 smaller grants thing was only introduced about a year or so ago?
It was,
and
yes.
So prior to that, you could apply for 300 quid, that's fine, or you could apply for £2,000. And so I think at the time we probably applied for things that were over £350. But as soon as the 351 came in, I have been doing quite a few of those instead. Because it's less time consuming, and a lot of our stuff that we need to fund now, because we've funded all our equipment and that kind of thing, so it tends to be £350 will help towards a specific recording session, or £350 will help towards X weeks of tutoring. So we are in a position where we can do that, but I have done both and been successful with both. We've also had ones that are rejected as well. Just going back to, because I had my hand up, so just jumping in on your question, if you don't mind, Linda, has that sort of helped a little bit?
Very much so, yes. It's almost curiosity as much as help, you know, to see how successful people have done, and how much, whether it has been used to do a whole project or an ongoing project. How much, if it was only £350 that an organisation got, then they've done jolly well.
I suppose it depends on your organisation and what you want to achieve. I suppose, for example, I guess if there's a gardening club and it's just a one-off application, you just want to buy some plants and that was it forever, and that will keep you going forever, because plants tend to, well, my plants don't tend to stay alive, but most people, we're sustainable. But for us, it's an ongoing process. We have new kids coming in, and things like the equipment, that's all sort of static now. But it's then as a recording session next year, and we apply again for another recording session, for example. So I suppose it depends on the nature of your project and the scope of that project. We've got lots of scope to spend lots of money if we wanted to. But you know, for a Spark project would be X amount. We would never get that full amount to run the whole kit and caboodle for the year for those kids. We'd have to go to the funding pots as well. But I was just going on from what Kate said before, and this is one of the reasons I had my hand up, is that yes, Kate, we have applied for higher amounts. For example, the £2,000 amount last year. And I think when you apply in the round 2, it swings and roundabouts. When you get to round 2, I always kind of feel, okay, that's what money's left now, and so I'm hoping they're going to try and get rid of it. So, but saying that, so we applied for, say, £2,000 for something from one of the councillors who's extremely supportive and always has been, and he kind of spoke to me in advance, and he said, we won't be giving you all that amount, we're giving you 1,000. So, you know, I would say go for and justify why you want the money, but you know, be prepared for them to say, yeah, we're just giving you half of it or 60%. And I guess the thing is, then you're going to have to find other ways of funding the project. Can I just, if you finish, Linda, because there was just one thing I wanted to, thank you very much. Just going on from, yes, I lost my thread from what Judith said. I remember the name Judith a few minutes ago, and this is a question for Dominica. I know I'm supposed to be here giving top tips, but I want to know this actually, because it intrigues me. And you may have to put all my current funding applications in the trash, right? Because we have been in that little bit of a cycle of being the round 2 people. I don't know how we got into that, but we're sort of a round 2 kind of company. And but say I've put in an application in round 2 for just call him Bob Smith councillor. When it comes to round 1 now, am I just not allowed to apply for Bob Smith's fund, or am I not allowed to apply for any funds? And I'm hoping it's the first, because otherwise, bye-bye to all my councillor funding applications.
So ideally you should wait and obviously finish your projects and complete all your reports. It's very much depends on what is it that you applied for as well. I mean, in reality, you need to complete your reports before you apply again. I think one of the ways of getting out of that loop at the moment is to kind of, so say you've received funding in round 1 this year, then you should be able to receive the end of project report. But I mean, you wouldn't be able to apply in round 1 this year, but if you wanted to for some reason apply in round 2, then you'd kind of have to wait for another 6 months, if that makes sense, after you've completed your end of project report in order to apply in round 2. That's the only way to work that around. But what I'll do, Clay, is I'll have a conversation with you offline. And we'll go from there, if that's okay. And thank you so much for your answers to Linda and to Judith as well. And I guess just to add to what you said, Claire, and to answer Linda's question in a bit more sort of from our side of things, councils do, some councils award around £2,500. In some cases, it kind of depends on the project, and it depends on the number of applications they've received and which area it is as well. So they will take all that into consideration, and if your bid is very strong and if it really aligns with what's needed in the community and it is good value for money, they are willing to fund a project that might be £2,000. It just sort of depends on the project, and they will judge each project on its own merit. Okay, thank you. Does anyone else have any further questions? I think Linda's is a legacy hand. Nikki.
Right, mine's not a question, but a request, if I may. For everyone who's attended, just to ensure that I've got my lists right, could I ask everyone just to add their email addresses in the chat if they can? And that's to ensure that, firstly, I can send you a copy of the slides that we've utilised tonight, and also to send you a copy of the recording so that you can look back on this as well. If that's okay with everyone, that would be fantastic. Thank you.
Thank you, Nikki. And let me just share our contact details as well on screen when my computer starts to work. But in the meantime, Sarah, I'll come over to you.
Thank you, Dominica. Yeah, just to say as well, from kind of a Carver support point of view, if you are looking at applying, please do get in contact with your local funding and group development officer, and we can support with the application as well. And alongside that, obviously some of the conversation tonight around looking at other funding as well. We can look at kind of alternative funding opportunities for you as well, and support with different funding applications as well. So just to put that out there, that obviously we can support with this particular funding application, but if it is that you can't apply again, or you want to look at other sources of funding, please do get in touch as well. And as I mentioned, if you're not sure who your local funding group development officer is, just get in touch with me and I can signpost you. Thanks, Dominica.
I've also added a link to the team in the chat if anyone needs that. Sarah, I hope that's okay.
Fab, that's great. Thank you, Nikki. That's fab.
You're welcome.
Thank you both. I do apologise, my computer is very slow at the moment, so I'm not able to share the slides, but we have our inbox, which is funding@warwickshire.gov.uk, so you are welcome to contact us through that inbox. And also all our information is available on our website, so our email addresses for the service managers and for Nikki, anyone that is working on the grants, is available on our website, and we can share that in an email with you. It's warwickshire.gov.uk/council grants. So that's CLLR grants, and I'll just put that in the chat for you all now so you can have a look on the website as well. Okay. There doesn't look like we have any further questions at this point in time. So I just want to say real quick thank you to all our guest speakers, all our colleagues here today, and I hope that we have answered your questions. If there are any things that you might think whilst you're applying or whilst you're preparing your application form that you're not sure about, please get in touch with us and we'll be able to answer that for you. Equally, if there's any things around your project in terms of applying, whether that's to apply for round 1 or round 2, etc., all those queries, please get in touch and we'll be able to answer those for you, hopefully. And yeah, I think unless anyone has any further questions or comments, just want to say thank you so much for joining us this evening, and you will be sent a copy of the recording. So yeah, thank you very much for joining us again, and I hope you have a nice rest of the evening.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you all. Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.